All right, we are back here on the Just End the Suffering podcast doing our NFL midseason report. Joining me today, FanSided's NFL insider, frequent guest of the podcast, Matt Verderame. Matt, welcome back. How are you?
I'm great, Michael. How you doing?
Doing pretty good, and I will say this is in spite of the fact that my Jets are terrible, and it's sort of a dual-pronged question I want to start with here. Do you think they're going 0-16, and how much longer do I have to suffer with Adam Gase?
I think you have to suffer with Adam Gase for 8 more games. Okay, I feel more confident in that than anything else. I just don't think they're going to fire him at this point. I don't think there's a lot of reason to fire him. I mean, yes, he's been awful. You can certainly fire him for that reason. But I think if you're the Jets, if you're the organization, you're probably better off just letting him finish out the year. Maybe you win 1 game, 2 games, and move on, and then have Trevor Lawrence coming to town in April. As far as going on 16, I don't think they're going to go on 16. I know they've been atrocious this year. And teams have done it. Cleveland's done it. Detroit's done it. I always err on the side of it's the NFL. You're going to get 1 game where the Jets play really well for them, and you're going to get some team that sleepwalks through the game. So I think the Jets will win a game. I think they'll find somewhere in there where they sneak the game out.
All right, well, the Giants already have a win, and right now New York football is not doing great. How much better are the Giants than the Jets right now? I don't think it's much.
It's not much. I think the biggest difference is the defense, really. The Giants have been better defensively than I thought. You know, I really kind of panned them in the offseason. I didn't mind the Bradbury signing. I thought Blake Martinez was a sunken cost. He wasn't great in Green Bay. He's been a lot better in New York. Played well. I think the defensive side of the ball, the Giants have a clear advantage. Offensively, the Giants are maybe a tick better because they have better weapons, but Jones has been awful. Jones makes way too many bad decisions. You watch that game Monday night against Tampa. The Giants should have won the game. If Jones doesn't throw 2 just horrific picks, they win the game. He missed a couple throws of wide open touchdowns, busted coverages. So, look, if they played each other at MetLife, I'd take the Giants in a 1-score game. I don't think there's a huge disparity between them.
Yeah, and obviously right now, both are front and center in the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. So if you were to handicap it right now, who do you think is the favorite? Is it still the Jets, or you think maybe that the Jaguars can sneak in there and steal them?
The Jets, because they have no way. So, you know, these other teams are going to have to hope that the Jets win at least a game, maybe even get to 2. And like I said, do I think the Jets will win once? Yeah, but I also think all these other teams are going to win at least 1 more game. Now, Jacksonville, the Tankapalooza's on here with Gardner Minshew getting benched, and they're going to Jake Luton. And this idea that, we like Jake Luton. No, you don't. You just don't want to win another game. So they're looking at it going, well, we're either going to get Lawrence or Fields if we lose out in all likelihood, barring a miracle. But yeah, the Jets are the favorite. I think right now you have to say they're the worst team. And so with 8 games left, you know, there are some games that just clearly are going to lose. They just played their hardest game of the year, one would think. But there are other ones that are tough. If I were a betting man, yes, the Jets are absolutely out in front for Lawrence.
Yeah, I think that's good for me, but that's a January problem. I want to talk about the rest of the league. I actually is worrying about this season. So my number one thing I took away from this weekend's games is what happened to Lamar Jackson, because this is clearly not the same guy we saw last year.
Yeah, listen, I thought Jackson, I wrote about this a little bit last year over FanSided. Jackson deserves to be the MVP last year. It was phenomenal. But he did struggle at times throwing outside. And when they played Tennessee in the playoffs, that's how the Titans beat them. They clogged up the middle. They jammed up the run game of run blitzes. And they said, look, you're going to beat us outside. They had good corners. They forced him to throw outside. And really up until garbage time, he couldn't really do it. You've seen the same thing now this year. The Chiefs played them like that. They held them to 97 passing yards. The Steelers played them like that. Now, to be fair, the Ravens ran all over the Steelers. They outplayed Pittsburgh up and down the field in that game. The difference was Jackson, who threw 2 picks, a pick 6. He had another interception, 2 fumbles in the red zone. You're just not going to win like that. And I do think, look, I'm not one for the hot take world that we live in, but there's something to be said now. For Jackson against good teams, he does not play well against them. And this was a game where Baltimore had Pittsburgh the way they wanted. Like against Kansas City, they trailed the whole game, and that's how you want to play the Ravens. You want them to not be able to run the ball as much. Baltimore was up 10 points at halftime. Like, that's exactly how they want to play. In fact, the first time Jackson's ever lost, having a halftime lead, and it didn't matter. They weren't able to hold on and win the game. So I do think with Jackson, well, teams have figured out if you can take away Andrews and make him throw outside the numbers, he's in a lot of trouble. And the good teams have been able to execute those plans, and he's struggled.
Yeah, and one of those good teams is the Steelers, who now have two back-to-back great wins, including the win over Tennessee the week before that. Yep. So do you think they actually can go undefeated? You think somebody's going to trip them up?
Oh, they're not going to go undefeated. Look, I think Pittsburgh's really good. And they do play a very easy schedule. But, no, they'll lose some games. I mean, look just even at where they are right now. Now, they're 7-0. Give them all the credit in the world. They needed 4 turnovers to beat Baltimore. And they still almost lost. They had to come back in the fourth quarter at home against Houston. They almost blew a game to Jeff Driscoll, where Driscoll had the Broncos in the red zone at Pittsburgh. The Eagles mounted a comeback against them and almost beat them in Pittsburgh. Tennessee, if Gostkowski hits the field goal, they go at least to overtime. We don't know how, of course, plays from there. But, no, Pittsburgh will lose some games. But I think Baltimore could beat them in Pittsburgh. I wouldn't be shocked if Indy went into Pittsburgh and won Week 16. They play at Cleveland Week 17. I think Pittsburgh wins. They match up well with them. But if Cleveland's playing for the playoffs in that game, do they muster up a win? I think Pittsburgh's going to lose a couple games. I think they're going to be, at worst, 13-3, maybe go 14-2. But they'll drop a few. It's just the nature of the NFL. They'll get banged up along the way. It just happens.
Yeah, it does happen. And one thing I think is interesting this year, it's something I didn't expect to happen. I feel like the Chiefs are a very under-the-radar 8-1 team. So you feel like that everybody's kind of forgetting about the Chiefs and all the hubbub about some of these other hot teams?
A little bit. I think it's just expected, right? And I feel like the Pats went through for years on end where people would just kind of go, well, yeah, of course they're 8-1 in the Pats, right? I mean, Kansas City, 7-1. You look at the schedule the rest of the way. I mean, they're at Tampa, they're at New Orleans. Other than that, they are going to be overwhelming favorites in every game they play. They are at the Raiders. We're the only team to beat them. But they get the Raiders off the bye. So that's going to help them significantly. Look, I think that Kansas City, the undertold story with the Chiefs is the defense is really good. That is the biggest difference. When you look at all these DVOA statistics, Football Outsiders, there's another one called Dave. The Chiefs are a top 10 defense, and against the pass, they're top 3 in the league. They do just about everything well defensively other than stop the run. They don't care if they stop the run because they score 30-some-odd points a game. So, no, I think the Chiefs right now, if you said to me, who's your Super Bowl favorite, it's them. I think the only team in the AFC that can challenge is Pittsburgh. And I think the Chiefs would beat Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh blitzes more than any team in football, and the Chiefs just destroy the blitz. So, I do think that there are teams that could beat them. But right now, to me, Kansas City is the best team in the NFL.
Yeah, somebody who sat and watched them play basically uninterrupted on Sunday for 3 hours, I can attest to that. That defense is really, really good.
They're just, they're under the radar because they're so good offensively that everybody focuses on Mahomes and Kelsey and Hill, and understandably, for sure. But their defense, between Jones and Clark, you got one of the best inside-outside tandons in the league up front. Matthews, an all-pro stud. Thornhill's turned into a really good young safety. Sorensen's kind of a jack of all trades. He's underrated. He's always around the football. Their corners are excellent. Breeland's very good. Ward is decent. Well, Jarius Sneed, who was playing lights out as a rookie, he broke his collarbone. He should be back after the bye. Source tells me that he's probably looking at about being on another game or so. So they're going to get him back fairly soon. But the Chiefs just do a lot of things well. They're a fast, athletic defense. And, look, when you score 30-some-odd points, if you're Steve Spagnuolo, you can take chances. You can be aggressive. Because if you get beat once or twice, who cares? It's not going to cost you.
Yeah, for sure. And let's go the other way. Let's go to some really, really bad football. So who do you think is going to win the slow speed bumper car chase as the NFC East?
Oh, my God. I mean, dignity loses, no matter who wins. But I'd say Philly. I said Philly before the year, so part of this is I'm sticking with them. But part of it is I can't see anybody else winning it. New York is awful. Dallas is starting a Cooper Rush maybe this week, quarterback. I don't know how you could pick them, and their defense is awful. The football team, good defensively at times, so you want to make the argument Rivera gets them going the second half of the year. I mean, I'll hear that argument, but I'll take it. I think Philly's going to be one of these teams. They're going to win. They're going to go 7-8-1. And they're going to make the playoffs and they'll get beat by 20 points by New Orleans or something. I think that's probably how this goes. But I'll take Philly.
Yeah, well, none of them are the best team in the NFC. Who is the best team in the NFC in your opinion? I feel like there's a lot of contenders at that top spot.
I think it's Tampa, and I don't think there's a huge. I think the AFC's gap bigger. I think I would be surprised if the Chiefs don't go to the Super Bowl, even if they've got to go to Pittsburgh in a playoff game. In this climate this year, who cares? You're not playing against 80,000 in the stands. Like, I don't think it really matters. Plus, Kansas City's cold weather team, it wouldn't really make any difference to me. The NFC, Tampa's really good. Seattle can't stop a nosebleed, although getting Dunlap and now Adams coming back, that'll certainly help. But their offense is so good. And Wilson's just having one of those years where everything's coming up aces. Everything. So, I think it's between those two. I'm not totally counting out the Packers or Saints either. The Packers, I am worried about them defensively. Mike Pettine's not a great defensive coordinator, and they're not particularly great at anything defensively. So I worry about them there. And the Saints, I just want to see what they're like with Thomas and Sanders for a stretch of time. Is Breeze washed? Is it because he doesn't have his guys? Right now, I think Tampa is 1A, Seattle's 1B, and then I'd probably go Green Bay to 1.
Yeah, it's not the right pecking order to me. And I do want to talk about the surprise team here. I do think that there are a lot of these teams like Miami, Arizona that have been off the fast starts. But I think my hot take right now after 8 weeks is I think the Dolphins could win that division. I don't really like Buffalo very much from what I've seen out of them.
I don't hate it. I don't hate the take, Michael. I think it's fair. My big concern is Tua. Like, if Tua's like he was against the Rams, they won't do anything. But if he's good, I'm with you, because the Bills got off to a start like gangbusters. Like 4-0, everybody's going crazy. Then they get blown out by Tennessee. The Chiefs handle them easily up in Buffalo. Like, my concern with the Bills is Allen was always going to come back to earth. Always. I don't care. People that said he was an MVP candidate before we turned insane. That was never happening. And defensively, which is kind of a weird thing because they were so good defensively, they're awful defensively. So, yeah, like I don't hate it. The only thing that makes me say I think Buffalo wins the division is they're already 4-0 in the division, and they beat Miami on the road. So I'll take the Bills, but I don't dislike the take. Miami's got a shot. My hot take, and it's been my hot take since June, I think the Cardinals are good. They're not going to go to the Super Bowl or anything, but the Cardinals are going to make the playoffs. They are going to be a team that wins 10 games or so. I think they got a lot of upside out there instead.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think it's easy to say, the Cowboys are the most disappointing team in football because of how they started, but I think the injury gets in there. Would you say the 49ers are a sleeper contender for that in terms of being a disappointing team?
Yeah, I think like you said, you got to handicap it a little because they're disappointing because of how hurt they are. I think there's underlying for the Niners is I don't think you're going to see Jimmy Garoppolo again in the Niners uniform. I think he's done there. So I think that's something that I think you've got to take into account. But they've had a lot of injuries. To me, it is Dallas, though. They've got to be the most disappointing. Dallas is a disaster. And yeah, the injuries, but let's face it. I mean, even before Prescott got hurt, they weren't exactly lighting the world on fire. So I think they're the most disappointing team by a mile. McCarthy, I don't think he's one and done, but I got to tell you, if this goes like this the rest of the year, he might be.
Yeah, Dak also has incredible leverage now for his contract. All he's doing now is just hand Jerry Jones the tapes of what the Cowboys look like without him and say, this is why I'm getting paid what I want.
Oh, he's getting paid. Oh, that's coming. He's going to get paid every single dime that he wants.
Absolutely. And my last question here is obviously we have the interesting situation of the MVP race because I feel like Russell Wilson's got off to such a hot start that I feel like it's his to lose. Is there anybody you think can catch him for the MVP, or is this just Russell Wilson's award right now?
Right now it's Wilson, but I think Mahomes is the one guy who can catch him. Mahomes now, 21 touchdowns, 1 pick. He's on pace for 4,600 plus yards passing. And they're the kind of a team he could rip off 20 touchdown passes in 4 weeks. I mean, so I think Mahomes significantly closed the gap. But yeah, Wilson's the guy. I mean, he's got 26 touchdown passes for 7 weeks. He's been great. I would say Wilson clearly is number one. Mahomes is a reasonably close number two. And then I think there's a wide gap. Then I think you're into like Rodgers, Brady, and I think those guys have a lot of work to do to get in the conversation with Wilson.
All right, that was Matt Verderame talking NFL this week. Thanks for coming on, Matt. Before I let you go, how can you follow on social media, keep up with some of the stuff we're doing over at FanSided?
Sure, yeah. So follow FanSided first of all, okay? See Michael's great work and some of my reasonably decent work. You can follow me over on Twitter at Matt Verderame, Verderame. Check out the Stack in the Box podcast. My column, Stack in the Box, goes up every Monday. Try to touch on every team in the league. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. Power rankings, quarterback rankings. You'll find it all at FanSided.
All right, Matt. Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
All right, and there you have it. That was Matt Verderame doing our NFL midseason report here on the podcast. A lot of fun there. Be sure to check out Matt's work over at FanSided. I also throw up my plug in. I do some stuff on FanSided every week. I give you teams to watch on Upset Alert. I give you the NFL betting guide, and I give you my NFL best bets of the week. NFL, a lot of these do make their way into the NFL picks on the podcast. We're going to do those up next with Phil Frietta right after this.